My name is Cassandra Shaw. I walked into the Cambridge Prep Memorial Gala wearing a simple navy sheath dress, and within 5 minutes I remembered exactly who I used to be to them. No one. The valet didn't offer a second glance. I nodded politely, clutch under my arm, and stepped through the grand archway of the Seattle Grand Conservatory. Inside, the chandeliers sparkled like polished diamonds, deliberate, intimidating, a reminder that some ceilings were designed to keep people out. Laughter hummed through the corridors. Applause swelled in the distance, followed by the soft clink of wine glasses. The concierge smiled politely and handed me a name tag. It read Cassandra Shaw in a basic sans serif font. No rank, no title, no context. Giselle's handiwork, I was sure of it. I'd made peace with this kind of invisibility years ago. The kind that isn't loud or cruel, just efficient. Erasure by omission. The ballroom looked like a stage set for legacy. Tables draped in ivory, gold-rimmed plates, florals curled like serpents around tall crystal vases. A large projection screen cycled through decades of photos. Class trips, homecoming, model UN. Giselle was in nearly all of them. I was in 3. My sister stood confidently near the front, laughing with ease in a red satin gown that caught every light in the room. Her voice echoed through the speakers as she addressed the crowd. 20 years ago, we were kids with plans. Now, some of us have built futures that matter. They applauded like they believed it. She continued, after 10 years building equity platforms and impact networks, I recently accepted the chair of strategic innovation at the Pacific Venture Forum. She paused. But I'll never forget where it started. Here, among dreamers. Her eyes scanned the room theatrically. And of course, she added lightly, to my sister Cassandra, who's here with us tonight, for always being uniquely herself. The room laughed, the kind of laugh that lands like confetti when you're not invited to the celebration. I didn't flinch. Giselle had always been a master at packaging cruelty as charm. I found my seat, table 18 in the corner by the emergency exit and the tray return station. The name tags at the front tables were embossed in gold. Dr. Rivera, Senator Mahoney, Giselle Shaw. My nameplate was plastic. Someone had left behind a half-eaten fruit tart and a damp napkin. I sat silently. I didn't come for them. I came to finish something. From across the room, Nathan Grant caught sight of me. Still tall, still smug, he raised his glass like a weapon disguised as politeness. Cassie, he said as he approached. Wow, I honestly didn't think you'd show up. You still teaching ESL abroad or something? I smiled faintly, adjusted my sleeve and said, Nice to see you too, Nathan. He grinned. I exhaled through my nose and reminded myself, 2 hours. That's all I needed. Let them underestimate me. They always had. Nathan didn't move. He stood there with that lazy, over-practiced smile, the kind that expected you to feel flattered just by being spoken to. The ballroom buzzed around us with conversation and curated laughter, but I heard every syllable he dropped like a breadcrumb to a memory I didn't care to revisit. So what's it been, Cassie? He continued, swirling his drink like it held more charm than alcohol. You vanished after college. Nobody really knew where you went. I think someone said Morocco? Or was it Moldova? I tilted my head. You always did confuse mystery with failure. He chuckled, not insulted, just entertained. A woman beside him in a pastel pantsuit leaned in with a performative smile. Didn't you study something with international law? Or no, maybe linguistics? I feel like I remember you in French club. Nathan smirked. She dropped out of Georgetown Law, remember? The woman gasped softly, eyes wide with secondhand scandal. No way, I had no idea. I didn't correct them. Let them fill in the blanks. I'd learned years ago that the truth didn't matter to people who'd already written your ending for you. I raised my glass, sparkling water, and took a slow sip, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make them uncomfortable. Nathan leaned in, dropping his voice. Seriously though, what do you do these days? Before I could answer, Giselle's voice sliced across the room like a silk-wrapped dagger. Oh, Cassandra, she called, sweeping toward us with the elegance of someone who practiced being admired. I nearly didn't recognize you in that throwback navy. Is it vintage? It's just a dress, I said. She laughed, soft, sugary, calculated. Well, you always did value function over form. She turned to Nathan and placed a possessive hand on his arm. Of course. I should have guessed. She always did like collecting things I had once let go of. We were just catching up, Nathan said, clearly unsure if he was flirting or being paraded. Oh, I bet, she replied, tossing her hair back with a smile that was all teeth. She looked back at me. You know that you really should share more about what you've been up to. I'm sure the room would love to hear it. Such unique experience. Only the quiet kind, I said. She tilted her head, searching my face like she wanted to find something lost. That's the thing about silence, isn't it? It leaves room for imagination. Then she turned and walked off, trailing laughter and the scent of designer perfume. Nathan stood there, visibly debating whether to follow her or stay. Eventually, he just muttered, "Well, good seeing you, Cassie," and wandered off. I sat back down. My hands were steady, but the pulse behind my ribs had begun to rise. That's when my clutch vibrated. Once. I slipped it open beneath the table. A single notification glowed back at me from my encrypted device. Project Perseus breach. Authority. Delta 9. Full engagement likely. I inhaled slowly, lips barely parting. Not tonight, I thought. But something deep inside me already knew. Tonight had chosen me. The hallway to my suite was carpeted in silence, the kind that blanketed everything too cleanly, like luxury trying to smother tension. I passed a pair of staff members wheeling a dessert cart and nodded politely. No one stopped me. No one questioned where I was going. That was the point. I entered the room, locked the door, and moved straight to the wardrobe. Behind the hanging garment bag with my unused backup dress was a matte black carry-on with no branding, no tags, and no identifiers. I laid it flat across the bed and released 3 hidden latches in sequence. The lid hissed open. Inside, a biometric terminal softly glowing blue. I placed my index finger, leaned forward for the retinal scan, then said aloud, barely above a whisper, "Shaw, Cassandra, Delta 9 clearance." The screen blinked once, then it came alive. Data poured across the display. Encrypted files, alert logs, threat grids. A red circle blinked at the center of a rotating map locked over Washington, D.C. Breach path. Active Project Perseus. Compromise detected. AI signal. Matching codex, ghost thread. Class Falcon. I narrowed my eyes. Ghost thread. A deepfake AI built on stolen field voices, mostly operatives, being used in real time to manipulate hostage negotiations. The last time it surfaced, 3 lives were lost before the signal was traced. This time, it had crossed into our intel servers. A message flashed across the screen. Live link incoming, DIR. Cabrera, Homeland Intel Division. I tapped accept. His face appeared, square-jawed and sleep-deprived, eyes shadowed by too many hours in ops rooms. "Cass," he said, skipping formalities. "We've confirmed voice print leaks from the Kiev intercept. Hostage group in Ukraine just received a ghost transmission using your old field ID." I didn't blink. "Active threat?" "Containment failed. They want your oversight. Full diagnostic on Project Perseus's firewall. It's you or no one." My pulse ticked upward. "Who's authorizing?" "Joint Task 6, under Homeland. But we're coordinating with Cybercom. It's messy, they're calling in flags." "Time frame?" "You've got 48 hours, he said, then hesitated. "Unofficially, less." I leaned back, the hum of the case still vibrating under my hands. "Where's the primary vector?" He looked at me, jaw tense. "Seattle." Of course, it was always here. Always personal. He added quietly, "I know you're in the middle of something. But if that AI shifts again, we'll lose the trace." "I'm aware," I said, closing my eyes briefly. "Then suit up. We need the real you back." The feed cut. The screen dimmed. I stood, walked to the mirror. The navy dress still clung to my frame, simple and unremarkable. But beneath it, beneath every quiet glance, every insult, every table near the kitchen, I carried a war room. And tonight, it was waking up. The gala had shifted into that strange after-dinner haze where wine flowed faster than conversation, and everyone started performing nostalgia like a well-rehearsed play. Giselle stood at the center of it all, on stage, spotlit, her ivory smile polished to perfection. "And finally," she purred into the mic, "I'm honored to accept this year's Distinguished Alumni Award. I guess some of us just never stopped striving." Laughter rippled across the room, warm and approving. "But truly," she continued, fingers poised on the podium like it was a throne, "this award is for anyone who dared to show up, to lead, to stay present, not vanish." She didn't look at me. She didn't have to. Her words curved like blades aimed across the room. Nathan stood and raised his wine glass. "To Giselle," he toasted, "our very own visionary. Proof that building empires beats hiding in shadows." More laughter. Even from people who didn't fully understand, just happy to join the rhythm. I rose quietly. My chair barely made a sound as I stepped away from table 18. No one noticed. Not until the lights flickered. At first, it felt like a generator hiccup, a minor technical glitch. But then came the wind. Cold, sudden, pushing through the cracks in the French doors that lined the terrace. Someone near the bar looked up. Another turned toward the windows. Then we heard it. A low, mechanical growl, sharp and layered, cutting through the noise like an approaching storm. The chandeliers rattled overhead. From beyond the manicured hedges, a massive black silhouette dropped from the clouds. Angular. Deliberate. A stealth helicopter hovered just past the tree line, its blades shredding the air. Gasps rose. Wine glasses tipped. Phones flew into hands. "What the hell?" someone whispered. The string quartet stopped playing. A woman screamed. The helicopter tilted slightly, positioning itself above the private lawn behind the ballroom. The downdraft hit with force. Leaves and petals spun into chaos. Napkins flew, hair whipped, champagne flutes shattered. Then, as if scripted by another world, the helicopter descended and touched down with surgical precision. The doors slid open. A woman stepped out, flanked by two shadowed operatives. She wore a tactical jacket zipped to her throat, insignia gleaming across the shoulder. Deputy Director Naomi Kent, Homeland Intel Division. She didn't scan the crowd. She didn't check her notes. She walked, straight toward me. People parted like water. Giselle, still holding her award on stage, stood frozen. Kent stopped 3 feet away from me, boots steady on the gravel path. She saluted. Then in a voice that cut through the stunned silence, she said, "Director Cassandra Shaw, ma'am, the agency requires your immediate presence. Priority 1. Silence cracked open like a dropped vase. Someone gasped. Nathan's mouth opened, then closed. Giselle's fingers curled around her plaque like it could anchor her. I stood tall. The wind caught the hem of my dress, and for the first time that night, I didn't feel underdressed. I felt exactly like who I was. By the time the helicopter lifted off again, the internet had already exploded. Someone's livestream caught everything. Naomi Kent stepping out, calling me Director Shaw. The salute, the silence, the wind tangling in Giselle's hair as her champagne spilled across her heels. It was already trending before I even made it back to DC. Hashtags bloomed like wildfire. She was the director, had Cambridge, gala extraction. The other Shaw. Sister. But the real detonation came 12 hours later. A new podcast episode dropped. Title, Sister of Secrets. Host, Giselle Shaw. She recorded it alone. Just her voice. Low, polished, weaponized. She started with a disclaimer. I love my sister, I really do. But transparency matters. Then she shifted tone. She accused me of using our reunion for a carefully orchestrated PR spectacle. Called my helicopter extraction dramatic, unnecessary, and deeply suspicious. Claimed I faked intel credentials to feel important again. And she said softly, real leadership doesn't hide behind code names. I sat in my temporary operations office in DC, As the transcript scrolled across my screen, my jaw didn't clench. My hands didn't shake. I had trained myself out of those reactions years ago, but something heavier settled across my chest. She didn't just attack my service. She'd rewritten it. Melissa called first. Her voice was clipped and furious. She buried your name in the archives. I checked. What do you mean? She told the school board years ago that you'd requested your name be removed from honors. Said you wanted privacy. She forged that? Melissa hesitated. She submitted it under your name. The file was password protected with her DOJ address as the recovery email. That part hurt more than I thought it would. Later that afternoon, Nathan requested to meet. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. He sat in the briefing lounge, suddenly small in his perfectly tailored suit. She told me, he said, eyes lowered. Back when we were still close. She said you didn't want attention, that you turned down the nomination for that field medal. Said it was too triggering. I never said that, I replied calmly. I know, he whispered. Now I know. I looked at him. This man who once made jokes about my disappearance, who now couldn't meet my eyes. Why didn't you ask me? He swallowed hard. Because she always made it sound like she was protecting you. A vibration buzzed across my secure tablet. I ignored it. She wasn't protecting me, I said. She was erasing me. He didn't deny it. Melissa texted 5 minutes later. I found the memo. The one she blocked. It's worse than you think. I stared at the wall. For so long, I thought silence would shield me. But sometimes silence just gives liars more room to speak. And this time, I wasn't going to stay quiet. The auditorium was packed. Cambridge Prep's Legacy Hall hadn't seen this many people since the governor's re-election tour. Rows of alumni and current students filled the velvet-lined chairs. Faculty lingered near the stage where a banner read, "Celebrating Leadership, Voices that Shape the Future." I didn't RSVP, I didn't need to. On stage, Giselle was already mid-speech, standing beneath soft amber lighting in a cream blazer and signature pearls. The voice was calm, confident, crafted. Leadership, she said, isn't about mystery. It's not about power plays or dramatics. It's about consistency, visibility, accountability. Scattered applause. She smiled gently. I know some people choose silence. They say they're protecting something larger. But real leaders, we don't vanish. We build, brick by brick, in public. It was a calculated hit. I walked down the center aisle, my steps sharp but unrushed. Murmurs rose, heads turned, phones lifted, Giselle faltered, just slightly, then continued. Sometimes silence lets myths grow in the cracks of truth, and we all know how dangerous that can be. I reached the edge of the stage. The board chair, an older man with silver hair and a furrowed brow, looked at me, uncertain. Lieutenant Director Shaw, I said quietly. I request 3 minutes. Giselle's face froze. A pause. Then the chair nodded slowly. Proceed. I stepped up to the podium. The room shifted, the crowd leaning forward in unison, as though breath had been suspended. I didn't speak right away. Instead, I opened the manila folder Melissa had pressed into my hands that morning. I pulled out a single photo. Me. In full tactical uniform, saluting on a rooftop in Kyiv, next to the NATO flag, a silver star glinting on my chest, taken moments after we extracted 3 hostages from an AI-manipulated siege. I held it up. You could hear a pin drop. I lowered the photo, then spoke. My name is Cassandra Shaw, class of 2003. I was once first chair cello, editor of the Ethics Journal, and voted most likely to become a professor. A few polite chuckles. But instead, I enlisted. I disappeared from your yearbooks, from your plaques, from your dinners, not because I failed, because I was serving. I paused. Some missions require silence, not for shame, but for safety. I unfolded a second page, redacted field reports, citations signed by officials the public would never meet. This, I said, holding them up, is what leadership sometimes looks like. It doesn't always have a spotlight, but it still leaves a mark. I scanned the room. My silence wasn't absence, it was service. People were standing now, slowly, a few wiping in their eyes, a few nodding, deep, quiet understanding. Giselle stood off to the side, arms tight across her chest. Her mask of composure cracked, not shattered, just enough for truth to slip through. I looked at no one and everyone. Some of us don't need to be seen, but today, I choose to be. I stepped back. No music, no forced applause. Just a hush so full of recognition it felt louder than any cheer I'd ever heard. The commendation came quietly. No press conference, a kit. No televised moment. Just a sealed envelope with the Department of Homeland's gold insignia delivered to my secure box 2 days after the Legacy Hall speech. Inside, a single line stood out in crisp black type. The President of the United States hereby authorizes the Medal for Exceptional Civilian Service to Director Cassandra Shaw for sustained valor and leadership in the defense of national integrity through cyber intelligence operations. I sat in my temporary office at Fort Eagle, a former airbase turned strategic command hub. I stared at the letter for a long time. I didn't feel triumphant. Not exactly. I felt released. I declined the invitation to the West Wing briefing role. Politely, firmly. I didn't need a bigger title. I didn't need a different chair. Instead, I chose a classroom. The third-floor seminar room at Fort Eagle wasn't much. Scratchy chairs, buzzing lights, mismatched paint on the ceiling tiles. But the faces in front of me? Cadets, recruits, analysts in training. Young, sharp, still unshaped by bureaucracy. My class, ethical leadership in covert systems. That morning, we were deep in discussion about chain of command failure scenarios. A freckled cadet with a high ponytail raised her hand. "Ma'am," she asked, "what do you do when the people above you twist the truth?" The room went still. I met her gaze and said, "You document everything, then you lead anyway." They laughed gently, but not because it was funny, because they understood. They were here to learn how to lead in shadows, the kind of shadows I had lived in for 2 decades. Later that day, as I packed up my tablet, someone knocked at the door. I looked up. It was Giselle. No pearls this time. No podium tone. Just a navy blazer over jeans, camera bag slung across her shoulder. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said softly. "You're on base?" I asked, surprised. She nodded. "I'm filming a new docuseries, Women in Command. They wanted me to start with someone who actually deserved the spotlight." She hesitated. I thought maybe I could tell the story right this time. I didn't answer at first. I studied her. She wasn't polished. She wasn't deflecting. She looked tired, stripped down, real. Melissa appeared behind her, holding up a mock-up book cover. "Leading in Silence, Lessons from the Field," she grinned. "Publishers in. They want both of your voices." I blinked. I hadn't planned on telling my story. But maybe the point wasn't the telling. Maybe it was who would hear it. I nodded once. "Let's write it right." The Hall of Recognition at Cambridge Prep had always been a quiet place. No microphones, no spotlights. Just polished wood floors, golden plaques lining the wall, and soft, natural light that made everything feel slower, reverent. Today, a new plaque was being unveiled. A modest crowd gathered, alumni in pressed suits, students in maroon blazers, a few teachers I half recognized from decades ago. No orchestra, no red carpet, just a podium and a linen-draped stand. I stood in uniform this time, not hidden, not cloaked in anonymity. My rank displayed clearly on my collar. The silver insignia on my chest caught a shard of morning sun as I exhaled, waiting. Giselle stepped up to the mic. Her voice wasn't theatrical today, it was grounded, honest. "She served without needing to be seen," she began. "But today we choose to see her. Not because of the medals, not because of the headlines, but because of how she showed up, over and over, when no one was watching." She paused. "She is my sister. And more importantly, she's someone I've learned from." No tears, no trembling voice. Just truth, spoken plainly. The cloth was lifted from the plaque. Cassandra Shaw. Class of 2003. Integrity and silence. No title, no resume, just the words that mattered. A few feet away, Melissa held the first printed copy of our book. She wore navy flats and a blazer 2 sizes too big for her, but she looked proud, peaceful. She nodded at me, then at the cadets in uniform lining the back wall. One of them whispered something to another. I heard my name. I didn't turn. I didn't need to. After the crowd began to scatter, I stepped closer to the plaque. Not for the cameras, for me. Giselle stood beside me. We didn't speak right away. She reached into her pocket and handed me something, a worn photograph aged at the edges. 2 girls in Halloween camouflage, saluting, one with a crooked smile, one with her chin lifted like it meant something even at 8 years old. You kept this, I said softly. I almost threw it away 100 times, she whispered, but I couldn't. We stood like that for a while. 2 women no longer trying to win or outrun each other, just sisters. A voice behind me spoke, young, steady. Ma'am? I turned. A cadet, barely 19, stood at attention. I just wanted to say thank you. You're the reason I applied. I nodded. Not with ceremony, not with fanfare, just presence. I stepped back from the wall and let the camera shutters click. Let them tell whatever story they needed to. But I knew the truth. And this time, the world knew it too. No music played as I walked out of the hall of recognition, only silence. But for the first time, it didn't feel like disappearance. It felt like legacy.